And a good Saturday evening to you. I'm Dave Alley, filling in for Tracy Lair. Governor Gavin Newsom announced the appointment of a new Ventura County supervisor on Friday. Vianey Lopez, who has served as an Oxnard City Council member since 2018, she was appointed as Ventura's new supervisor. The 35-year-old is set to continue the work and the legacy of Supervisor Carmen Ramirez in supporting working families and the Latino community. The announcement comes after Ramirez was killed back in mid-August. Ramirez was struck by an oncoming truck as she crossed a downtown Oxnard street. Lopez will represent District 5 on the board. It includes parts of Oxnard as well as many of the coastal communities along the shoreline. An update now, COVID-19 booster shots are now available. The updated booster is set to target both the original and newer variants of the COVID-19 virus. Its availability comes ahead of the fall and winter months where many will gather together indoors for the holidays. Dr. Erica Pan says getting your booster shot and flu shot is vital for protection.
Please get your seasonal flu vaccine and your COVID-19 booster. You can get them at the same time. I got mine today. It was really easy, and it'll protect me this fall and winter from both flu and COVID-19.
And Dr. Pan recommends getting a booster shot 3 months after an infection and 2 months after your last dose. Isla Vista Recreation and Park District held its second annual Music in the Park concert series today. News Channel reporter Amina Wahab tuned in to see how music made UCSB students feel so connected.
Bill Tran's passion for music started at a young age.
Something about music just like connects with people like internally. I don't know, it's like one of the purest forms of expression that like humans participate in. So I love music for that reason.
It was this love of music that led him to found the UCSB Sound Society, a music production club that teaches its members how to record, produce, and mix and master their own music. Today was the first time that many of the musicians from the UCSB Sound Society performed on stage in front of a live audience, thanks to the second annual Music in the Park concert series.
There's some really talented musicians in Isla Vista, and they deserve to have a stage with a professional sound system and, be able to showcase their talents.
These musicians sang about everything as heavy as heartbreak to lighthearted topics like their love of waffles.
First he was talking about like a girl and stuff like that, and I was like, this is so cute. And then he started talking about waffles. And it was just funny. It was a good transition. Like, you can tell that this guy really he feels what he feels about girls and waffles.
Most of the attendees were engaged and fully present, whether they were watching the musicians perform or whether they were participating in the different art stations, ranging from tie-dyeing t-shirts to making bracelets.
Honestly, like me and my friend, we actually didn't bring our phones, so that helped a lot, I guess.
There will be plenty more opportunities for visitors to immerse themselves in these weekly Saturday events, as this fall Concert in the Park series will continue until October 8th. In Isla Vista, I'm News Channel reporter Mina Wahab.
It's our time now to take a look at our weather. Shawn Quien standing by in our first alert weather center. Shawn, we got the weather, not waffles. So.
I was going to say waffles, weather. All right, say that 10 times. All right. Looking along the coastline, boy, our savior is the ocean. Remember back in early September when we had that pretty relentless heat wave. That one went all the way to the beach, so nobody was really escaping this one, But this one is a little bit better. As you can see along the coastline right here, you can see some 60s out there. Now you get it closer to the Santa Barbara South Coast, and it takes a little more effort to get right on the sand to get the coolness. But boy, compare that to what you see inland, and you can see how much our beaches really can be the place to go to beat the heat. So we are under definitely watching this next heat wave, but it looks like this one is going to be more of an inland focus, and your beaches and your coastline will definitely be the places to beat the heat. Now, officially, we do have some watches and advisories. I'll go ahead and click on this. It will be a little hard to see, but down in Ventura County, we're going to go under, I should actually go ahead and stop that first, which is right here. Now, when I click it, it should work, and there it is. We're going to have a heat advisory going through about the 27th, so we have about 3 or 4 days ahead of us, more like 3 days, before that heat wave will start to break, and that will be more toward the middle of the week. So about Tuesday or so, expect to be very warm just off the sand and inland. So again, when I come back, we'll talk about how when this heat wave goes away, what's behind that, and also a very busy hurricane situation is going on, it could actually be very critical in the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. Dave, I'll send it back to you, and I'll be back in just a few minutes.
Okay, sounds good. A lot to talk about. Again, we'll see Shawn Quien very soon here. Meantime, the last Delta IV rocket took off today from Vandenberg Space Force Base. News Channel reporter Christina Rodriguez, she was there. She spoke to spectators who traveled all across California to watch the launch.
The Delta rockets have been launching from Vandenberg since 1959, and this was the last launch.
It's exciting to see a Delta IV Heavy. I hear it's loud, I hear there's a lot of vibration, and the weather looks perfect today.
People traveled from Northern and Southern California to witness space history.
I think everybody's excited. I mean, the community is buzzing about the launch. You see the cars driving into Vandenberg.
The Delta IV launch will be the last heavy rocket launch on the West Coast.
ULA's path forward is they're moving away from some of their older legacy rockets and moving into the future. So it's really cool to see, the space industry kind of like step up and push harder into the future.
Other people say they are excited to see the new lightweight rockets launch that will replace the Delta IV.
I don't think a lot of people know that rockets take off from, not too far away from Southern California. So I think it's cool when people are interested in space and interested in coming up and seeing how a launch goes off.
In Vandenberg, I'm News Channel reporter Christina Rodriguez.
Also taking place today, the biggest celebration on the Goleta Coast. That happened this Saturday afternoon. The sounds have returned to the Goleta Lemon Festival. A lot of people there on hand to take in the action. The Lemon Fest has a lot of stuff going on, like the lemon eating contest, lemon pie eating contest, lemon beer, also lemonade, of course, from a lemonade stand. You got to have that. There was an endless amount of rides and games taking place, such as archery tag, inflatable bubbles, and obstacle courses, all for the kids. After a 2-year hiatus, locals are enjoying all of the things citrus.
My favorite thing is usually the food. I love to go around to all the different food places and try them because I don't usually try like food trucks and stuff like that.
I like running into people from around town. Yeah, it's not that big of a town and it's fun to see the people you know.
Certainly nice to have it back. The event does continue tomorrow. If you missed it today, it will run from 10 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. Meantime, in Buellton, locals there, they held their very own Oktoberfest. It's Figtoberfest. That took place today at Figueroa Mountain Brewing Company. Among the festivities there, beer pong, had a tournament with that, a pretzel eating contest, also keg holding. That was held to see who can lift a keg above their head the longest. The festival has also included a yodeling contest to see who could perhaps be the next Bavarian Idol. The festival is still going on right now, and in just a couple of hours, or less than a couple of hours, at 8 o'clock tonight. Still ahead on your news channel, we're going to go around the world. We'll go to Iran, where protests are still breaking out. Over in Iran, protests are happening there, spreading across the country after the death of a 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman who died while in custody by Iranian police there. Now, her alleged offense was violating the Islamic Republic's dress code of not wearing a hijab. Officials say many protests and police have been killed since those protests first broke out, and the country continues to crack down with restrictions on internet and social media access. Ryan Chilcote is following the story now in London.
It's been 1 week since the funeral of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old Iranian woman who died in police custody after being detained by Iran's morality police, and the protests in that country are showing no signs of letting up. We now have demonstrations in more than 12 Iranian cities, increasingly violent clashes between the government on the one side and the protesters. State media say the death toll could be as high as 35. The AP has confirmed at least 11 deaths since the protests began. Mahsa Amini was detained for allegedly wearing her hijab too loosely. The hijab, of course, the headscarf all women have been mandated to wear in Iran since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. The UN says they have information the police used a baton to hit Amini on the head and banged her head against a car during the detention. The authorities in Iran say she had a heart attack but hadn't been harmed, something her family disputes. Protests have even spilled over Iran's borders. Demonstrators gathered in Iraq, chanting women, life, freedom, while holding pictures of Amini. And in Berlin, protesters gathered Friday condemning the Iranian authorities and demanding Western governments keep up the pressure on Tehran. This is the worst political violence in the Islamic Republic in the last 3 years, when protesters clashed with the government and hundreds were killed over the then rising price of fuel. Protesters this time say that if the pressure isn't maintained on Tehran to not use violence to put down these protests, then these protests too will be crushed. In London, Ryan Chilcote.
Still ahead after the break, we're going to talk weather. Hurricane Fiona causing damage everywhere it goes, this time hitting eastern Canada.
And no such worries for us, but we also have to watch Ian over in that part of the world. We'll talk about that, but boy, absolutely beautiful. The beach is the place to be. We'll talk about our little heat wave as we get ready to look toward October when I return in just a few moments.
Weather news now. Fiona continues to leave its mark, this time hitting 2 provinces in eastern Canada, turning from a hurricane into a powerful post-tropical cyclone overnight. On Saturday in Nova Scotia, about 80% of the province was affected by outages, and in Prince Edward Island, about 95% were without power there. Forecasters caution that despite the change, Fiona could still have hurricane-strength winds as well as bring more drenching rains and huge waves there again to eastern Canada. Nothing like that here on the central and south coast. It's no longer summer, Shawn.
Officially.
Officially, but it sure seems like it.
Well, yeah, and you know what? This is some of the times of, as we all know, especially you and me, Dave, that in this area, this can be the ushering in of our best weather of the year. And of course, that means right through sometimes early November. And you can see absolutely stunning, beautiful, 65% humidity. Your sunrise and sunset times slowly eking toward fall as we are actually through fall as we've already entered it just a few days ago. Heat advisory mainly for Southern California. This will stay in play for interior portions of Ventura County through very early next week, the 27th to be exact, so that's Tuesday. And again, as I mentioned, and I'll show you, this heat wave may have a silver lining, and that is the coastline. And you can see that right here. Ventura, 72 degrees, Goleta, 75. And downtown Santa Barbara getting up close to and mostly in the 80s, and then your inland areas into the 80s and 90s, and the beaches of the Central Coast, 69 for Lompoc, kind of on the cool side, Pismo Beach at 64 degrees. So again, holding on to our coastline, which is always so nice, and a lot of our heat waves this summer, it was a mild one up until early September. We had that beach sort of wild card where it stayed nice, and you can see that right now, same thing. And again, it looks like this heat wave, as we look at our wind speeds, mainly out of the northwest, but this heat wave will mostly be focused inland, which typically that's how it is. But again, that early September one, a lot of people were saying, how come it's so hot right into the sand? And that's because we lost all of our ocean influence. A lot of widespread humidity on the beaches, and that means that the fog and the marine layer is definitely coming. Now, Fiona really slamming into Canada. This has happened before, but boy, there's a lot of factors here. Fiona kept a lot of its girth and its energy, and also this part of the world has some of the highest tides, normal tides, of anywhere in the world, and therefore we had a high tide right when Fiona came on shore, so a lot of coastal flooding. Now we'll focus to the south, and then this is Ian, and boy, we have to take a real close look at this because Ian is a tempest in a teapot. It's hot water in the Caribbean, hot water in the Gulf, and it looks like we are going to definitely be seeing some solid energy out of Ian over the next couple of days, and the steering is mainly right about here, so everywhere from Cancun, Yucatan to Cuba, and then the U.S., and we're going to be watching this very closely. There's our forecasted path right now. We use a lot of weather computers to sort of forecast these things, and we're expecting about a 3 or 4 storm category. And then under this, you can see, we'll go ahead and look at our spaghetti models. Actually, it didn't want to give me that time, but basically all the forecast is throwing it toward the Gulf side of Florida, maybe Tampa, maybe just a little bit more to the west of that. So for us, hot temperatures, high pressure in firm control, and you can see the satellite, a lot of cloud cover staying well to our north. They're actually getting some much needed rainfall and prospective rainfall for the Pacific Northwest by early next week. That will help to slowly cool us down once we get to about Tuesday going toward Wednesday in the second half of next week. Marine layer again staying in the game for tomorrow morning and as well Monday, although it may become less pronounced or less inland penetration on Monday, as we expect that's when the heat really to kick in. But look at this, boy, as long as we hold on to that, that will definitely mean that the beaches will be the place to beat the heat. And there are your expected highs for Sunday into the 70s and 80s for much of the inland coastal plain. Your inland areas, though, solid 80s and 90s. As we head to Monday, look for a little boost in the warmth. Definitely everybody getting warmer. And maybe even Gaviota. Look at that. Computer hinting at possibly a little north wind action. So South Coast, again, a beautiful day expected. Some 80s out there, solid for a lot of the region. You get right on the sand, though. Some of that fog, those foggy areas will hold on to some coolness all the way through the day. So a nice sea breeze expected. So this means probably a little bit of traffic near the coastline as those inland folks are trying to beat the heat. As we look down in Ventura County, look at that, Ojai 98, Port Hueneme a very pleasant 74 degrees. Surf is small, mainly out of the southwest and also some northwest wind swell. Quick look at our 7-day forecast maps, and there it is. We do expect to cool down by the latter half of next week. In the meantime, just really enjoy the weather. Watch out, very warm inland, not terribly. And again, the beaches will be the place to beat the heat. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Well, you could say today that people went bananas at Port Hueneme. It was the return of the Banana Festival specifically. It came back after a long 2-year pandemic-driven hiatus. And there were plenty of food vendors there, from seafood to barbecue, many of them selling banana-themed items, ice-cold brew, soft drinks, banana margaritas. Sounds good. Those were also sold. Local businesses, in addition, had their own stands. Some handcrafted jewelry and other merchandise also available. Kids, they were able to design their own shirt, paint faces, and participate in an educational fishing program. One last look now for a very appealing forecast with Shawn Quien.
That's absolutely, yeah, boy. But, you got to love Hueneme. And also, did you notice the flags there all across the port there? We're getting onshore. So that means that it was really mild conditions. And boy, look at all those 80s across the board for Santa Barbara, getting pretty toasty through Tuesday. Then we start to slowly bring it back down the other way. So San Ynez, solid 90s, then back to the 80s, and really looking nice as we head toward, what is that, October? Wow, Dave.
All right, we're back here tonight at 11. Breaking news anytime on our mobile app. Have a good evening.